Welcome back. In our previous two videos, we've been talking about solving quadratic equations. So we have done the square root property and we've done solving by factoring. Well, unfortunately, everything can't be factored. So we have to have different ways to solve. And this way, completing the square is based off of perfect square trinomials. And we saw in our square root video that we can solve an equation that has a quantity squared on the left and then a number on the right. We just took the square root of both sides. So our goal is to turn any trinomial into a perfect square. So we're going to be given the first two terms and we have to come up with the third one. Okay? And if you'll remember, for a perfect square trinomial, it should be in the form a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. So the a and b are the square roots. So the square root of a squared is a, the square root of b squared is b. And then if we were to fold this out, that would give us the middle term. And there was a shortcut. Remember, you multiply these two, there'd be ab, multiply that times 2, and you get your middle term, 2ab. Okay, so that's how a perfect square trinomial is supposed to work. So let's take a look at an example of a perfect square trinomial. Let's say we have x squared minus 14x plus 49. Okay. Well, I'm telling you it's a perfect square trinomial. So because of that, we'll go ahead and try to factor it. So we'll take the square root of x squared, that's x. The square root of 49 is 7. And you always take the sign of the middle term, whatever the middle term is. And then it's supposed to be quantity squared. Okay. Now we could fold this out and check it, or we could check it using the shortcut, square the first term, square the last term, multiply these two, that would be negative 7x, and then times 2 is negative 14x. Okay. So today we're just going to focus on how to get this number. That's going to be the c that we're going to try to find, the constant. In our next video, we'll be changing it into a binomial squared. But again, right now we just want to focus on how to get this number. So let's think about how this number could be related to negative 14. And how is negative 14 related to negative 7? Well, negative 7 is half of negative 14. So if we were to take half of negative 14, or divide it by 2, and then square that, let's see what we would get. Negative 14 divided by 2 is negative 7. Remember to always do order of operations first, so we do what's in parentheses. Then we square. Negative 7 times negative 7 would be positive 49. Whoa, that's the same number that's right there. It turns out that that works on any perfect square trinomials. To get that last term, you just take half of the middle term and square it. So we can consider that to be our complete the square rule. Now a will need to be 1, and in today's video it will be. Later on we'll find out if a is not 1, we're going to need to divide through by whatever a is. But for today's lesson we're good, a is just 1. Now the directions in exercises are going to say complete the square to form a perfect square trinomial. So let's basically just use that rule, b over 2 squared. And a lot of times textbooks will put a box where they are indicating that your C is missing. Some test generators will just say find C, and then textbooks are just going to have that box. So what we want to do is find out what our C is, and this is our little rule we're going to use, b over 2 squared. Okay, so that's what we're trying to find. That's our constant. We don't know what that is. So we do have a little rule though. C is equal to b over 2 squared. So b is in front of our x term. So that will be 16 divided by 2 quantity squared. So do what's in parentheses first. 16 divided by 2 is 8. 8 squared is 64. So that is what would be needed to fill in our C. So the perfect square trinomial would be x squared plus 16x plus 64. So you might be asked for the whole trinomial. If you're just asked for C, then that's all you need right there, the 64. So in number 2, we have the same directions. We're still trying to complete the square, so we're looking for C. And remember, our rule is b over 2 squared. B is in front of x, so that will be negative 24 divided by 2 squared. Negative 24 divided by 2 is negative 12. And negative 12 squared is 144. So that would be our C. And if we wanted to rewrite the trinomial, we just add plus 144 at the end. Unfortunately, our B term is not always divisible by 2. So we might have some fractions. So here I see my B is 7. And remember, our rule is b over 2 squared. So that will be 7 over 2 squared. And we don't go for decimals on these. We're going to leave it like it is. Remember, when you're squaring a fraction, you square the numerator. 7 squared is 49, and 2 squared is 4. And that would be our C. And then the trinomial would look like this: m squared plus 7m plus 49 over 4. And that is completing the square. Have a great day.